Reddit, what's a time you saw in butthole kid get what they deserve? I was around 8 years old on a jumping castle and this random kid bounces over and asks how old I was. After telling him, he immediately started punching me in the face, and I ran away. I turned back to see if he had given chase, but instead he'd jumped off awkwardly and had broken his ankle. I laughed quite hard. Should have went over and punched him in the face. Payback. I was working at a Pizza Hut at the time. Some kid around age 10 or so went into the men's restroom and crap in the urinal and proceeded to smear it all over the goddamn place. We knew it was the kid due to it not being very busy that day, and a co-worker spotted the mess right after the kid left the bathroom. We weren't sure what to do, but the manager decided to tell the parents. The father was P. He made the boy clean it up. He stood over him yelling at him and made him clean it all. The boy was crying, but frick that kid. He was old enough to know you don't do that crap. He wasn't mentally impaired. He was just in butt. We were all glad the dad stepped up. Otherwise we would have had to clean it. TL. DR. 10 years old brat smeared his own crap all over a Pizza Hut. His father made him clean it up. When I was in my mid-teens, a little neighbor girl about 5-6 years younger than me came to my door. She accused me of putting my name in her sidewalk. It had recently been done. Except, of course, that wasn't my name in the sidewalk. That not being enough, she then accused me of using a fake name in the sidewalk, so I wouldn't get caught. I asked her why, because that would defeat the purpose. To which she came up with this gem: "I'm going to tell my dad you hit me." No such thing had happened. Then she turns to run off and do just that. Right face first into the sharp stone stucco wall, splitting her lips, nose, and cheek open pretty bad. She told her dad I did it. He came to my door and calmly asked me what happened, and I told him, yeah, that's something she'd do. Sigh. I'm raising a gold digger, kid. I once saw a kid terrorizing a dog at a park. The dog was tied to a pole and the kid was chasing the dog around on his bike. The owner came back and started yelling at the kid. As the kid rode off, he popped a wheelie and the front wheel of his bike popped off midair and he did a face plant in the parking lot. I felt pretty bad for laughing but couldn't help it. It was so unexpected. You shouldn't have felt bad. Frick that kid. I was driving a fire truck back from an all-night fire about 7 AM. This truck's diesel mixture was a bit rich, so if you sat for a while and gunned it, you might get smoke from the exhaust. As I approached a highway from the residential street I was on, there were 6 middle school kids waiting for the school bus on the corner. As some kids do, they stand or walk in the street and refuse to move for cars. As I came to the intersection, one little crap looks at me smugly and does not move, causing me to have to go into the oncoming lane at the intersection. I patiently waited until I could make my turn onto the highway, then gunned the crap out of the fire truck's diesel engine, causing a thick blob of black thick smoke to come out the exhaust, which was mid-truck pointed right at the kids. They were coated in thick oily diesel fumes, especially Mr. Smug crap. And last I saw, they were halfway down the block on the sidewalk running with me on the road spewing smoke after them. Mr. Smug looked at me with terror in his little half-developed mind. Mr. Smog. I grew up in a really small town where all of us kids went to school together K-12, unless you went to the parochial school, all through elementary school. This girl who lived down the street from me was a total B. She was taller than most of the boys, and would bully anybody she felt was beneath her. One day, coming home on the bus, she was picking on this boy in my grade. We were a year younger than her. He wasn't an albino, but pretty dang close white hair, really pale skin, thick glasses, and his parents saddled him with the name Clarence. Kid just couldn't catch a break. Anyway, this girl was leaning over the back of her seat and in his face the whole ride home, calling him names, making fun of his glasses, clothes, etc. A few of us tried to get her to stop, but she was relentless. Poor Clarence just sat there, his face getting redder and redder, the occasional tear sliding down his face. When the bus came to his stop, he slid to the end of the bench seat, calmly stood up and turned to her. Then, faster than anybody could even take a breath, he hauled off and did a full arm swing and smacked her in the face with his lunchbox, his metal lunchbox. Then he just turned into the aisle and slowly walked off the bus. They say when an EOD has a bad day, he turns into pink mist. Her nose had a bad day. She spent the next 3 months with varying degrees of black eyes as a result of the initial injury and subsequent surgeries to repair her nose. That was the last time she bullied anyone. And the best part of the whole story is that Clarence never got in trouble for it. That calm rage. I know the feeling. Our neighbors have 5 kids. They're all brats, but the middle child, a boy, is the worst. He was in front of his house one day while I was outside doing some landscaping in my front yard. A shiny new red pickup truck drove by, then slammed on the brakes and started backing up. It stopped in front of the brat's house. I heard the lady in the passenger seat yell, "Did you just throw a rock at our car?" Of course the boy denied it, and started making up some ridiculous excuse, like he always does when people catch him making mischief. The woman cut him off and told him to go get his mom. Apparently the woman in the truck was from the neighborhood and was also fed up with their kids and their nonsense. The mom finally came out, holding the youngest brat, and the woman in the truck proceeded to give her the kind of verbal beatdown that the mom should have been giving her own kid all along. Watching that mom stand there and listen to some stranger rightfully criticize her parenting for 10 minutes straight was gratifying. The only thing better was watching the brat squirm the whole time. That sort of thing happened to my dad. It was winter, and this butthole kids from up the street decided to throw an ice ball at his new car as he drove by. He slammed on the brakes, drove in reverse and top speed and caught the sucker, almost running him over. He gave the kid a verbal throwdown and scared the shithead so bad. Never did it again. There was this kid who used to annoy me and my friend growing up. He was years younger than us and didn't just want to play with us. We played sports games with kids years younger than us. Age was never an issue for us. He just wanted to annoy us. We'd play all different games. Street hockey, baseball with a tennis ball or wiffle ball, etc. He'd constantly watch waiting for his moments to jump in and frick the game up. We tried ignoring him at first, but there's only so many places to play in our neighborhood, so we couldn't really go to too many other places to play. After a while, we realized ignoring him wouldn't be enough. He had too much fun with it. We started trying to annoy him back, throw the ball at him, stuff like that. He always laughed as he dodged them but would start wailing when we hit him. He went running home and his parents hated us. One day, his father finally walked up to us and told us to relax and stop bullying his kid, while the kid had that butthole grin behind him knowing he's screwing you over. The father was actually reasonable enough to say he doesn't know who's telling the truth because he wasn't there. He asked us to ask the kid to leave or at least go elsewhere. We would go elsewhere, but the brat would follow us and annoy us constantly. We kind of got to the point where, as bad as it may have looked, we'd do something to him. He'd run crying home. And then we'd leave to find somewhere else to play. After a while, we were playing something and he was there annoying us. His father drove by and happened to see the kid annoying us and slammed his brakes and just parked his car in the middle of the road. He absolutely tore into his kid. His kid was bawling his eyes out. His father made him apologize to us and apologized to us himself since he realized it was his kid causing all the issues. We never had another issue with the kid again. We'd all laugh whenever we saw him and he'd just get pee and run off to probably annoy somebody else. TLDR. Kid always annoyed us. Went to tell his parents that we're screwing with him. His father finally catches his son lying and annoying us. His father rips into him and apologizes to us. This story put a huge grin on my face. The little jerk off that pushed my daughter down and stole her pinwheel toy from her at the park completely biffed it into the slide running away. I chuckled. I won't even pretend like I didn't. Kid was there unsupervised and terrorizing the younger kids. I calmly walked up smirking after he was laying there a bit winded and grabbed my daughter's toy back from the ground beside him. A 10-year-old kid dumped a cup of water on my 18-year-old brother to show off for his friends. My brother responded by sticking the kid head first into an empty trash can. Except it wasn't empty. It had a foot of rainwater mixed with a decade of garbage drippings in the bottom. The can tipped, and the kid comes out soaked, wailing, and smelling of sewage. He ran home and never spoke to nor fricked with my brother again. For the record, if he knew the can was full of water, he wouldn't have dumped the kid in there. There was a kid in high school that was trying to rob an ice cream truck. The driver accidentally ran him over and broke both of his legs. Bangarang. I was working the shoe depot at Sears back when I was 18. One day this little crap kid is in there with his unattentive mother. He's running around, knocking stuff over, making a mess. I ask her to keep him in check and she refuses. The kid starts running circles around the register. Well, the register was on a little island in the middle of the depot and had a slide out shelf about waist high to an average person. I'm bringing up an actual customer, so I slide out the shelf and set this person's shoebox on the shelf. Little crap comes flying around the corner and wham. Forehead connects with the shelf and a loud butt crack. He immediately falls backward, blammo right on the floor, and then starts wailing. The mother gives me a dirty look and gathers up her brat, making her way out of the store. The customer and I both watch her go and then just sort of shrug it off. Worked in a pet store when I was in high school and we had a real issue with this particular family letting their kids act like dongbags all over the store. One fateful day, butthole family walks in and dongbag daughter goes right to the puppy room. Kids can't hold dogs without a parent and no one picks up a pup unless we are the ones to get them out of their little runs for them. Welp. Little Mrs. Wipe reaches in and grabs a pup by the leg and tried to pull it toward the wall of the run so she can lift it out. I see this on my CC monitor by the register and run over to stop her from hurting this puppy. By the time I get in, she has hoisted this dog up by one leg and nearly has him over the wall of the run. Mom and dad are standing right there, not doing crap when I walk in. Before I can get a word out, crappy daughter sees me and drops the puppy back into the run and turns around like nothing happened. I yell at the girl and her parents obviously get defensive and I offer to play back the tape of their daughter hauling a puppy up by its leg then dropping it 4 feet onto a tile floor. I tell them they need to go and of course they refuse. As I go back up front to inform the manager, I notice little Miss Fuckwit poking her fingers into the feeder rat cage while shaking it. The rat in that cage was a jumbo feeder and was separated from the other feeders because she had just had a litter of pups. Now, rat moms are good moms. They will protect their babies, unlike mice who give zero fricks about their progeny. This is important. Dickhole daughter has her finger in the cage and is banging on the opposite side when karma strikes. Mama rat is not having any of this crap and runs right up to this girl's soft, pink finger and bites down hard on the little crap's finger. All heck breaks loose because mama rat isn't letting go and rat bites blow. Parents freak. Manager tries to calm the situation, and I get a band-aid and alcohol for little fuckwit so she stops bleeding all over the floor. In the end, butthole family isn't banned from the store, boo, but stops coming soon after because idiot mom insists that the giant blue and gold macaw is friendly even though he isn't and gets her ear ripped up a good one. In the end, rat mom and babies get promoted to pet rats instead of feeders for their brave part in helping exact vengeance of donghead families with demon spawn. The blue and gold macaw was also rewarded for his part with many French fries. TL. DR. Rat and macaw avenge their puppy brethren from the bullshittery that is helicopter parents and their crappy children. Rat and macaw, wardens of the pet store, banes of little shoots. Tim was hit by a car and almost died. Broken bones, brain injury, and coma at the age of 9. He missed 2 years of school. When he came back, he joined my class. Mentally he was there, but not. Academically he was fine, but socially he had a hard time making friends. Had a almost non-functioning left arm, tremors, and a slightly different walk. Due to his left leg being shattered, it made him an easy target. One morning before school started, Jeff, who was one of the primary agitators, really lets into him. It was almost 30 something years ago, and I can't remember what set him off, but Tim grabs Jeff's neck with the bad left arm. We found out the grip was just fine, and took his good right and punched him in the face uninterrupted for a good 60 seconds. Being 2 years older gave him a distinct reach advantage. I wish this had an effect on everybody and they would leave him alone. I remember my 5th grade teacher shutting down class one day and chewing us out about Tim, but it did no good. It was back to normal the next day. Frick junior high. There's a reason I don't talk to those buttholes anymore. I wish I could tell you that middle school is better now. It's worse, I do not know how, but it keeps getting worse. Maybe locking all the children in the middle of the most violent and unremorseful time of their entire lives in one big building for 3 years is a bad idea. One day playing at the park when we were kids, my bratty neighbor decided to use her sharp nails to scratch the crap out of all the other girls. We were all under 10 at the time. I don't remember being scratched myself, but my sister had some awful red streaks down her back. My mom was livid and went to tell off the girl's mom about her daughter's crazy behavior. It turned into a shouting match. I guess my mom won because the other mom went into her house and came back a few minutes later with her daughter's nail trimmings. She gave them to my mom. Gag. You gotta have proof sometimes. I saw a kid being a dong to other children at the park. Even though it was an awesome idea to try out the baby swings, he got stuck and the fire department had to come and cut him out of the swing. Anytime you see a kid hurt themselves doing something their parent just finished telling them not to do, watched a kid slam his finger in a door just minutes after his mother told him to quit messing with it and sit down. I chuckled a little bit. Priceless. Had a punk neighbor, 12, that would consistently taunt and tease my little sister, 7. Neighbor boy decides one day to throw a large, small baseball bat size stick in my yard and tell my little sister to fetch. She surprisingly goes to get the stick, only to whack him across the face with it. She has learned well, to say the least. I once saw a kid run up to a man and kick him square in the balls. The man immediately dropped to his knees, then pulled a gun from his waistline and aimed it at the kid to scare him off. I'm not one to say that anyone deserves one thing or another, but I lived in a fairly bad neighborhood at the time, so maybe that kid learned a lesson about what might happen if you frick with someone. Honestly, knowing it was a fairly bad neighborhood, I'd be inclined to do the same. The kid could have been the first part of a mugging. As cynical as that is to say, I've seen gangs use kids firsthand, and they do it because they know the kid won't get in serious trouble. I went to see a monkey show in Thailand where the trained monkeys perform various circus tricks for tourists. Two 12-ish-year-old kids were poking one of the monkeys with a stick through the cage and their parents weren't taking any notice. During the show, the monkeys were performing a trick where they throw a ball to the audience and then catch it. The tormented monkey ran straight up to one of the kids and threw the ball point blank straight into his face. The monkey had a pretty good arm on him, enough to make the kid's eyes water and leave a red mark. Back in high school, there was this kid Andrew. He had Asperger's. He was a cool kid though. I used to talk Pokemon with him in art class. Anyway, one day after class, one of the football kids was being a prick and blocking Andrew from walking down the hall. He kept stopping right in front of him and making Andrew slam into his back. Right as I was about to say something, the football kid stopped again and Andrew lurched forward and bit the kid in the neck. The football kid screamed and Andrew took off running down the hall. I laughed my butt off for days at that one. Andrew used bite. It's super effective. My mom told me this story of when I was a kid. I think around 4 years old. I was at soccer practice and we got a water break. The team had ongoing practices for all age groups at the same time. Anyways, I was in line to drink water when an older, probably around 10, kid decided to cut in front of me. My mom said, and I quote, "You looked straight up at him and punched him right in the balls." The kid apparently fell to the floor and I walked right over him to get my water. I wish I remembered this. I wish this was recorded. A guy who used to pick on me real mercilessly in high school got busted for selling crack in the high school parking lot. Senior year. Far as I know, he's still in prison since he was over 18. Held back a few times at the time of the arrest. Right out of high school and to prison? Probably a bit harsh, but some would say he got what he deserved. Not sure if this has already gone metered or. I worked at Round Table Pizza one day while working the early shift. Me and another manager were standing at the register talking. This guy comes up and asks if we had seen his cell phone. His table was cleaned when he went up to go to the bathroom before he was about to leave. We asked the abuser if he saw a phone and he said no. I decided to call the phone from the store phone. When I called, the phone was answered and a female voice was on the other line. The conversation went something like this. Me. Hello? Her. You're what do you want? Me. Did you find this phone? Her. You'll give it back to you for $100. Me. Hold on a second. I hand the phone to the customer and all I can hear is hello. Yeah, okay, fine. He hangs up the phone and instantly whips out a knife and walks outside the store. Me and the other manager look at each other thinking someone is about to frickin' die. The customer was P. We walked over to the door and watched him just walk back and forth in front of the store. He eventually cools off and just waits by his truck. About 5 minutes pass and this teenage chick, she wasn't more than 18, walks up to him. She demands her $100 and he asks if she has the phone. She pulls it out of her pocket and is waving it around. He walks up to her and moved faster than I have ever seen someone move. He grabs her, puts her in a headlock and just starts punching her in the face. As he's punching her in the face, he is yelling, "Give me back my phone, B. Give me back my phone." She just throws his phone away from her and he just lets her go and shoves her away and just walks over and picks up his phone. At the top of her lungs she's yelling, "My boyfriend's going to kick your butt." The guy is walking back to his truck and he just yells back, "Frick your pee-butt boyfriend." Jumps into his truck and drives off, leaving the girl there with a stupid look on her face like she couldn't believe he drove off. Her face was all bloody and it looked like she had a broken nose. I about pee myself laughing so hard. Dang. What a dumbass trying to use blackmail. Hopefully she's a bit smarter now. Doubt it though. I played soccer my freshman year of high school, and my team was one of the better ones in our division. There was a team from another school who we had heard would always try and cheat their way to a win, faking injuries, trying to injure you when the refs weren't looking, etc. And finally we got our chance to play them. Their team was playing man-to-man defense, so the same girl was guarding me basically the entire game. Every time she would get close to me, she would dig her fingernails into my skin. So by the time we got to a break, my arms were completely shredded. I told my coach what was going on, and he went and mentioned it to the refs. They said they would watch out for it, but when play resumed, she kept right on doing it, and the refs continued to not notice it. Finally, I was pretty fed up. At one point, she came and stood behind me, but also slightly to my right. As soon as she reached out to touch me, I popped her in the stomach with my elbow as hard as I could. She of course fell to the ground and pitched a big fit, and they ended up stopping the game. When the refs came over, she was being very dramatic, rolling around and writhing in pain, and she told them this whole sob story of what had happened. I'm sure it did hurt a little, because I meant it to, but it certainly didn't hurt as much as she was making it seem. The refs went ahead and red carded me though, despite our previous complaints about this girl, so I went and sat up in the stands with some of the parents. By the time play resumed, she was magically feeling good enough to play again, except this time she was guarding my friend Kay, who is much more awesome and less patient than I am. This girl starts doing the same thing to Kay that she had been doing to me, but Kay only put up with this for about 45 seconds before she turned around and popped her one right in the face. The girl ended up having to sit out the rest of the game because her nose was bleeding pretty badly, and Kay was red carded as well and got to come hang out in the stands with me. It was of course awesome watching Kay punch the girl in the face, but the aftermath was awesome as well. 1. We won the game. Actually, we beat that team every subsequent year of high school as well. 2. It was found out after the game that one of the refs was actually related to one of the girls on the other team, so they actually downgraded K and I's red cards to yellow cards. And 3. The next year when we played that same team, K managed to catch that girl's eye before the game started, and give her a really menacing look. We saw the girl go talk to her coach right after that, and she ended up sitting out that entire game. We never saw her after that. Oh, and we won states that year as well. If there's one thing I've learned about most girls' sports, it's that they play a lot dirtier than boys. Not necessarily cheating, but just so much extra violence. I had an answer to a similar thread that I think works here, so I'll just copy paste. When I was working at an airsoft field, we had parties come in all the time. One party, the birthday kid was being a total dong to his friends, shooting really close, not calling hits, and yelling that he hit people when he never did. So me and my co-worker had had enough of this kid being a dong. So we decided to let the boss son play. He's really competitive, doesn't really know how to take it easy, but on the opposite team. We told him to be really tough on the birthday kid for a game or two to teach him a little lesson. However, the boss son just went nuts after the birthday kid shot him in the back of the head really close. Typically, you tell someone to surrender and they just go back to respawn. Needless to say, the boss son get really pee and just lit the kid up point blank. Full auto. The birthday kid started bawling and the party left early. My boss just asked if he was being a LB. Little bastard. And when we said yes he just shrugged. None of us gave a dang. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.